When you look at the state of the U.S. right now, the tension, the feeling that everything's a bit shaky, it's easy to just say the system is broken.
Right. Or that someone broke it.
Exactly. But today we're looking at a paper that argues something totally different. It says the system isn't broken at all. In fact, it's just following the laws of physics.
We are digging into 42% That Destabilized America by Dorothy W. Parker. And she is very, very clear on this point.
What's that?
This isn't a political piece. She calls it a structural diagnostic. So she's looking at the country less like a sociologist and, well, more like an engineer trying to figure out why a bridge has started to shake.
And that engineering lens is what really grabbed me, because we usually assume you need a majority, right? 51%. A huge movement, something massive to make a real change.
But Parker's core idea is that you don't. You don't need a majority to destabilize a nation. You just need a critical minority.
Around 40%.
Exactly. A critical minority that just withdraws its consent. That's what she calls threshold destabilization.
But that feels a little counterintuitive. I mean, if 60% of people are still on board, still participating, why does the whole thing start to wobble?
It's all about network theory. Parker uses the analogy of a power grid or a bridge. These big systems are built with a redundancy buffer.
A safety margin.
A safety margin, yeah. And it's usually around 40%. So if a few cables snap, the load just gets transferred to the others. The system holds.
Okay.
But once you go past that threshold, once you use up that backup capacity, the remaining 60% just can't handle the strain. The math is pretty clear. You don't need a majority to fail.
You just need to exhaust the redundancy.
That's it. So the bridge doesn't collapse right away. It just enters this state of what she calls intermittent failure.
It starts to shake.
It shakes. And she went looking for this 40% withdrawal in the data, and she found it, well, everywhere, across totally separate parts of society.
She starts with the spiritual, which she calls her anchor metric. The big number is that 42% of American adults have deconstructed the faith they grew up with.
But the nuance there is even more important. She found this thing she calls hollow structure.
What's that?
It's that 37% of practicing Christians report they're internally deconstructing while they're still, physically showing up to church.
So they're filling a seat, but they're not holding any of the weight.
Precisely. It's outward participation, but inward withdrawal. And that exact mindset, that quiet rejection of the institution, is showing up in the labor market too.
Which is her second sector. You see, 36 to 38% of the workforce is now in the gig economy. And on the surface, that just looks like, people wanting more freedom.
Parker says it's deeper. It's a withdrawal from the traditional social contract. The old W-2 deal was simple. I give you compliance, you give me stability.
A load-bearing cable for the economy.
A huge one. And when almost 40% of people step outside of that system, things like tax bases and insurance pools, they all lose their redundancy.
And then there's the third pillar, trust in family. I mean, trust in government is, we all know, incredibly low.
Hovering between 17 and 38%. Which basically means our institutions are running on enforcement now, not consent.
But the family stats, those seem like the most structurally damaging in the long run.
Oh, they are. Parker calls the family the primary training ground for society. It's where you first learn how to negotiate, how to deal with authority.
And the data there.
It's stark. 27% of Americans report being actively estranged from family. And that jumps to over 43% when you asked about lifetime exposure.
So if that training ground is fractured, you're creating citizens who don't know how to engage with the state.
And that's the convergence. Faith, labor, family, they're all different systems, but they're all showing withdrawal rates right around that 40% mark. The buffer is gone.
But the millions and millions of people, it's hard to believe they all just decided to quit at the same time.
And that's the paradox. She says it's an uncoordinated convergence. It's not malicious. It's not a plot.
It's self-preservation.
Exactly. People are leaving a toxic job or a high-control religion or an abusive family. They're doing it to save themselves.
So the intent is personal, but the impact is structural.
She has a great line. No one withdraws to destabilize a nation, yet no one withdraws in isolation. The instability we all feel isn't some political plan.
It's the delayed consequence of millions of people just quietly dropping the rope.
Yeah. This whole thing reframes the volatility. We aren't shaking because we're divided and fighting.
We're shaking because the people who are holding everything up have just quietly walked away.
It's just physics. A system can't survive that level of non-participation.
So Parker leaves us with this final thought. She says the U.S. isn't destabilizing because it's divided. It's destabilizing because too many people have put down the weight they used to carry. So the question for you to think about is this: which structures are you still carrying?
And which ones have you quietly put down? And maybe, can the system handle it if you let go of one more?